Hello, my name is Greg Massi, and this is episode number 57 of The Color of Air, a podcast about the musical journey. And this week, I'm definitely back on a better schedule, getting things done ahead of time, so I'm not rushing around at the last minute. And I'm pleased to present you this week's episode featuring Francis Roberts. Now, Francis is a musician that I got introduced to through the dungeon synth scene, like a lot of the guests I've been having on this podcast. But Francis has a lot of other things going on. He is a dungeon synth composer, creator. He also does rock and metal bands. His band Old Man Wizard, King Gorm. He's done a lot of tutorials on YouTube, which is where I kind of first discovered his music, where he really goes in depth about the process of recording and tries different things. You know, he'll do a video on making a dungeon synth record with just software synths, and then we'll do one with making one with just hardware synths and things like that. And he really provides a lot of valuable insight to people who are kind of just getting going with recording and want to know where to start. And so it was interesting for me to sit down and talk with him. And so we talk all about his music and his production stuff. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention he had a song featured on the soundtrack to Spine of Night, which was an amazing film that came out earlier this year. An animated kind of rotoscoped tribute kind of to Ralph Bakshi kind of animation, and had a lot of really great musicians on it, and also included the Dungeons and Artists Guild of Lore, which was pretty cool. So yeah, Francis has done a lot and has a lot of music out there. So to introduce you to Francis, I'm going to start with a track from Old Man Wizard's most recent record, Kill Your Servants Quietly. And this is, I guess, the title track, because this song is called Kill Your Servants. thanks for taking time to do this. I know you're very busy. I see you.
Sometimes.
Well, I feel like I don't know. Like I feel like I see like new videos all the time. New, you're releasing projects all the time, or things.
Yeah, trying to trying to stay busy.
So I mean, I tried. In all honesty, I tried to touch as much in terms of research, like going through as much of your stuff as possible in the various different styles. And still, so I might, my memory might not be, I might not be up to date on everything you've done. So if I
That's
miss,
fine. Yeah, I try to I do that intentionally.
oh, okay.
I make it hard to find things that I don't think are as good. Usually, I'll like sometimes I'll just take stuff down, take albums down. No one needs to hear this one anymore.
I've had that same experience. I have a couple things on my Bandcamp that I'm like, I understand why I put them out at the time, but I'm like, it's not really my best work, so maybe I can just hide that a little
Yeah,
bit.
the way I see it, it's like you end up with maybe like 20 albums out or something like that over years and years, and um, when I see that, I like can't figure out which one to click on. I just
Yeah,
like have decision paralysis. So I want to make it really obvious. Like this is the one that I want you to see right now. This is the one I'm the most excited about currently.
yeah, that makes
And if you
sense.
like it, you can dig through the rest of it. But
Yeah, that's kind of why I like the whole buy digital discography function on Bandcamp, because it's
Mhm.
like I don't have to choose which one I support, and I have them, so like be like, okay, this is cool, but let me check it. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it's different from when, like the other day, a few weeks ago, when I was talking with the guy from Jag Panzer, and I was like, yeah, it was like I remember having to go to a record store and only be able to, buy one record.
Mhm.
That's how much money I had, and so it's like you have to choose, based on artwork or song titles and all that other stuff. But now you can just kind of get everything and go
I
for it.
remember like 2004 ish, like that time period when it was like you buy a CD for like 22.99, and
Yeah,
it's like a really bad album, like where you get to listen to the first track in the headset in the store.
yeah,
And it's like the producers would spend more money on making that one track sound good than they would on the rest of the album. And then you buy it because it had cool artwork and the first song was good and the rest of it's just complete garbage.
yeah.
Like it's
Oh
really
yeah.
funny.
There was that, but also the other thing I realized too is because well, I mean, like with vinyl records, there's a time limit, like
Mhm.
there's, it's
Yeah.
like 40, 50 minutes tops that you're dealing
So
with.
it requires editing. Yeah.
It requires editing, it requires planning. And then I discovered, or I noticed, I shouldn't say I discovered, like as soon as CDs came out and they're like, oh, well, you can get up to 78 minutes on a CD or something like that. And bands were intentionally like putting all this extra stuff on there to make it. They're like, oh, we'll give you more
Yeah.
for your money. And I'm like, yeah, but some of it sucks.
It became a marketing thing, right? Like
Yeah.
a marketing like sticker, like
Yeah.
78 minutes of music, whatever the amount of time is on the album. And yeah, it does lead to, that's like more music than people have the attention span for usually.
Yeah. It's like, unless you're doing like a concept record, like I know like Genesis, uh, why is the name? God damn it. The concept out. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. That I can see being more than, like being a 78-minute CD. I'm like, well, yeah, because that's a full thing, or a classical thing, like a symphony or something like that. But, but such and such rock band, they're like, oh, here's more filler songs just so we can get a, as soon as I
Yeah,
see it. Sorry.
it's just a bunch of songs. It's like
Yeah.
here's like, instead of 10 4-minute songs, we're gonna give you like 18 4-minute
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'd be like, how many songs are on this record? I'm like, oh God, this is going to be a slog to get through.
It feels like it starts feeling like it should be two albums. My favorite like amount of music to listen to at a time is like about one side of an album. Like I like about like 15 to 20 minutes of music at once. If I'm paying attention to the music, if it's like background music or it's like in a movie or a game, that's a different story. But if I'm like sitting on the couch and putting a record on, I'll usually get through one side of the record, and then I'll come back later for the other side.
Oh wow. All right.
That's like my amount that I like. So 78 minutes is way too much.
Yeah. I guess should dig into. So, where did you get your start? Like, or what started your journey, I guess?
In music or in recording or in what in what
In
piece of
music
the journey?
first, and then how it
Okay.
transitioned into recording.
Let's see. I was at some family event, one of my dad's friends' birthday parties, and um, my dad's friend had a kid who had a guitar. It was about my age, and showed me how to read tabs. And I was like, this is really easy. This is fun. Like it seemed like it was easy because it was like, you match the like the graph to the graph. And and I think I learned how to play Nothing Else Matters. Um, and and then I heard from somewhere that you were supposed to learn Stairway to Heaven. So I like spent like entirely too long learning that song poorly. That's a really bad first song to learn. It's just like a lot too much stuff going on. But anyway, spending a lot of time with those two songs. And like there was a guitar in the house that nobody used really. Like so I found it, and it was like, looking back, it was like pretty much unplayable. But switching from like a pretty much unplayable guitar to like your first guitar that you actually get that's for playing, like the strings are like an inch closer to the fretboard, and everything works, and like every note sounds like the note it's supposed to be instead of like the frets being uneven. And it was just like a night and day. And I got like really obsessed with playing guitar throughout like most of high school. Like I was probably playing like 4 to 8 hours a day, like over summer vacations and stuff like that. Like it was the only thing I did. So that was the thing that really got me started. And after like spending a summer vacation playing guitar and then bringing a guitar to school every day with me, you attract the attention of other musicians that are 15, 16 years old your age, wanting to start a band, and people start asking you to be in their band, and you start a really bad punk band inevitably. So we had a punk band called Thresher Tuna that we never played a show. We made band shirts. We didn't make songs. We just made band shirts and like tried to write songs.
That's awesome. Well,
yeah.
It's funny when you say that, because when I was talking to you're like not the first person I've interviewed who's been like, oh yeah, we started this really bad punk band when we were in high school. And I feel like that's that's just a kind of a starting point for a lot of people.
Yeah, the first band that I think actually like played shows with and stuff like that, our bass player would always say like that you can't trust musicians that haven't been in a bad punk band at some point in their life. Like, which is like very wise for his age at the time.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And so in the course of your project, so the bands that I'm aware of are Old Man Wizard and King Gorm. Now, were those kind of, I know King Gorm has only got one record, so maybe that was a more later thing. Was Old Man Wizard your first kind of serious project, or did you have bands before that?
I had bands before that.
Okay.
It's before that. Yeah, Old Man Wizard was like that project is about 10 years old.
Okay.
At this point. And let's see, how old am I? I've been playing music for closer to 20 years. Yeah. And so I had some bands, like the band that I had in high school had like a demo that we recorded. Like, so that was the first time I recorded, was like when I was 18 years old, probably maybe 19. Like right after we finished high school, we started like trying to figure out how to make an album. Let's see, did Dread Crew of Oddwood for a little while, which is like a sort of pirate themed band. We played like Renaissance fairs and metal festival type shows. Kind of a weird combination. And that one was like actually relatively successful. Like we did a lot of touring and sold more albums than I ever would have imagined.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Like it was really just like a lot of people like this for some reason. And I think it had to do more with the stage show. Like it originally was a 9-piece band with in the lineup included like an accordion and mandolin and some other like uncommon looking instruments. and it was like a really ridiculous show. Like it was yeah, definitely more of a show than a band, I would say. And that band is still active. I'm not in it anymore. I haven't been for a very long time now. But it's like people like it. Like I find, Reddit posts about us, and occasionally we'll see like a video where like we got mentioned on like a YouTube, like 10 weird bands that you haven't heard of kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll go in and comment like, oh hey, that's me. And then people will like comment like, oh, I recognize you from like so and so. And it's like I had I probably hadn't had a haircut or a shave in like 2 years by the time that band got popular. So I looked like a troll. Like I had like like hair down to here and like a beard, like giant beard.
Well, that fits with the concept, though. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. And that was my first like touring band. That was the first time I was like, let's try to make this work.
yeah.
So like we would like tour for like as long as like 2 months at a time. And I think they're on their fifth album right now.
Okay.
I did three. I think I did 3 albums with them. I can't remember.
Well, so as someone else who was a veteran of a 9-piece band and going on tour with said 8-piece or 9-piece band, what was that learning experience like, having to like keep like that many people on tour? I mean, was that a tough
Well,
experience?
we lost like at least one member before we did a tour.
Okay.
But then like I think the first time we toured it was still 9 people though, because we had someone with us to help with like merch and driving shifts and stuff like that. I think we did 2 cars the first time too. We didn't have a van yet, as I recall. So it was like this weird like Tetris of like
Yeah.
relationship dynamics and equipment.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so and so is not getting along with so and so this week, so they can be in different cars.
That's wow. If I thought that would be a feasible option, I think that probably would make sense. Because yeah, if you're pissed at someone in that band, if
Yeah.
you're stuck in a van together for a 9-hour drive or 8-hour drive, that's just not fun.
Yeah, I remember like I mean back then we were like pretty young. I think the youngest of us was, I know when we started the band, the youngest in the band was 16 or 17. And the oldest person in the band was maybe like 22. It's like young adults, older teenagers. And God, I just remember one of the times like we were playing a practical joke on one of the people. We were staying in like a Motel 6, and we had 2 rooms because you can't quite fit that many people in one motel room without attracting enough suspicion to maybe get kicked out.
Yeah.
So sometimes we would try to do that, and it was just it wouldn't end well. Just like how many people can you fit on the floor, and how many people can you sneak in the door when the person at the front door is not looking?
Yeah.
But we were in 2 rooms that night, and we thought it would be funny to like call the other room and say that like the checkout time, we were past checkout time. Um, and like one of our bandmates was so pissed. He was like, I think he was like washing his hair, and like he didn't talk to me for the rest of the tour.
Oh wow.
And it was like, oh my God, I like I didn't realize that was going to be like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like it was towards like the last like week of the tour, of like a almost 2 month tour, and just like not getting to finish washing your hair because we pretended the checkout time was 1 hour earlier.
Yeah.
Was like that was the thing that like ruined our relationship for like a month or two. It was like he was like legitimately like upset about it, and I didn't understand at the time why. And it's just like, these days it's like, yeah, okay, like it wasn't that. It was like it's a combination of all the things building up to something like that. And at the time I was like too young to really understand that that's how those types of dynamics worked. So I was just like, whoa, this is what's going on here.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
when people in those situations, I mean, yeah, because like my band had like 4 members quit on one night.
Oh God, yeah. Like we're starting our own band.
Yeah. And it was but it was like, if you looked at it, just based on that one night, it was like, okay, well, we had we didn't make much money, but we never made that much money. So I mean, it wasn't like it but it was more that like you said, it's like there's a buildup. There's like
Hmm.
you know, at this point, yeah, with this one night, well, and also alcohol was involved, which is never good.
Yeah.
But yeah, they, you know, you think, okay, I'm not making this much money, but also I've had 2 years of not making this much money and dealing with so and so and dealing with so and so's bullshit, and then so this is the final straw, and then, you know, like you said, the straw that broke the camel's back, and then it's just
Yeah.
like, I quit, I quit, I
Yeah.
quit, and
And I think that comes from like mistaking well, I think that a lot of us grew up being taught that tolerance was a good thing.
Mhm.
And like it's really, the more I think about it, it's not like being tolerant of something is like it's almost like you're just like letting stuff slide that shouldn't.
Mhm.
And being like actually like compassionate um involves calling people out, right?
Yeah,
And like I think that stuff like that is the result of, you know, especially when you're younger, people being taught like, you know, you're in school, there's 20 kids, like you have to deal with them for the rest of the semester, and when you're an adult, you don't have to deal with people anymore. If you don't want to, you can just, you know, stop being friends, or you might move, or, you know, tell them that you don't like them.
yeah,
And it's kind of a new experience for young adults. And when you're being tolerant in that way, it's like, you know, I'll just deal with this. Like I only have to deal with it for another week, and then I won't see him for a while, and it'll all blow over. And it's like, no, you should tell someone if something they do like upsets you. Like you don't
yeah,
need to be tolerant like in that way. Like that's not
yeah,
like the good kind of tolerance.
yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's levels, you know, yeah, but yeah, and I, well, you know, and I think you'll agree, yeah, that kind of stuff when you're that age, it's a learning experience, and it
Hmm.
teaches you stuff that, you know, you carry on, and you know, there's certain things I know, I lessons I learned which I will never forget from that.
Yeah.
You know, those kinds of experiences, you know, not least of which, you know, exploring, you know, I'm not sure how far your tours took you, if you went all around the country or just kind of were localized, but yeah, but just seeing different parts of the country and seeing how,
Yeah.
you
That's
know,
really incredible. Like I mean, touring just the United States is like, it's you start wondering, like you start imagining where the borders should be if
yeah,
you split it up into the countries that it feels like it is,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it really doesn't feel like one country when you go through the whole thing. It's like this idea that we're this united country is like, oh, you go into Texas and everything's different, and
yep,
you go into like Louisiana and everything's different again, even though it's like right next to Texas.
yeah,
And then you go to the Northeast and you're like, holy shit, like the culture is so different here because they have to, you know, tolerate like extreme weather that, you know, just
yeah,
completely like turns their like system off, like
yeah,
blizzards and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like I mean, in the south you have hurricanes, in the northeast you have blizzards, in the southwest where I am you have wildfires. And the way that these disasters affect the culture is, you know, you can see it in the way structures are built.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's like it's
exactly, yeah, it's fascinating, and when you learn just, you know, I feel like it does kind of like shatter stereotypical kind of
mhm.
ideas you have of the different, you know, like, you know, it's funny, like I think because we had one of the musicians in our band was African American, and the most overt racism we ever dealt with was in New Hampshire, which is like really funny. You wouldn't think that. But in Texas, everybody was like super friendly.
Yeah, well, and you have this like you have this like southern hospitality type vibe where people are willing to be polite even if they don't like you.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think that that's kind of an interesting thing, like learning that like that like politeness isn't the same as being nice or being kind.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that person might be like a racist piece of shit, but they don't want to cause a scene.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's like like that doesn't make them a better person, but it makes the experience like quicker to get through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember some lady in Texas. I forget where we were. I think it must have been Houston, and it was where Enron was, and this one lady was like, "Oh, you want me to take a picture of you in front of the Enron building?" You know, and this is after Enron had like that huge country, you know, and
Wow.
we're just like, yes, we want to be. memorialized in front of this symbol of horrible of capitalism gone wrong. I don't know. It was interesting. And well, not to I don't know. I go off on tangents, and also there's no linear order to this, so I'm just gonna jump around. So
Okay.
bear with me. So because I kind of came to know you and your music through the whole dungeon synth scene,
Mhm.
when did that start for you?
Um, I think that stuff for most people that I've talked to in the dungeon synth world, um, it seems like it's almost a subconscious thing
Mhm.
where it starts as a result of liking whether it's liking the intros of metal songs from the 90s or liking the music from the Zelda video games or whatever it might be, um, like enjoying that music as part of something else without thinking of it as its own thing, and
Mhm.
then finding out that people are doing just that by itself as its own um, uh, thing that exists. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. But I think that's kind of how it happened with me is you start hearing music and you're like, someone shows you an album and you're expecting it to, turn into a metal album or turn into, a hip hop album. Maybe it's some kind of a beat is going to enter in. And it doesn't. And it's just like, it stays that way the whole time. And then, like, what's this called? And someone says dungeon synth, and you're like, oh, that's a cool name. Like, I play D&D.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I had an album that came with like the third edition manuals of D&D that like it could have been called dungeon synth, and it was like music for your Dungeons and Dragons game. And there's always been stuff like that, and when you put it like in its own format, it's like, oh yeah, of course I like this. I just didn't know what it was called yet.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably how it happened with me. But I'm trying to think of the first time that I remember hearing dungeon synth, like, and hearing it be called dungeon synth, like being performed by artists that were calling it dungeon synth. Um, let's see. I'm gonna get this wrong. The first time I remember like binging it though
Hmm.
was probably 2017, 2018. I was on tour with Old Man Wizard, and we were staying at a friend's house, and he was like, "I think you guys are gonna like this music," and he just showed us like a bunch of albums. We were just listening to a ton of Dungeon Synth. I don't remember which artist, but he like had a Dungeon Synth like tape collection, and we all loved it. It was just like, oh my god, this stuff is so cool. And like, I think we had heard some of it before, but sort of in passing. And that's the first time I remember being like, yeah, these are albums, and it's like this whole subculture and scene, and like people put it out on tapes, and like this is like a thing that you can do. And I was just like, wow, it was a combination of wow, this is cool, and like wow, I already make this stuff. I didn't think people like wanted to consume it or listen to it, so I don't put out recordings of it. And like I was already making that kind of music, and I
Okay.
just didn't. Because I was thinking of it still as like, this would be a great intro for like an album or something like that. Um and I was like, okay, well, let's try, making an album of it,
Hmm.
and making an album of these types of things, and actually releasing it and seeing if anyone likes it. And people did. Like, people that like I was friends with online, and like people I found some groups on Facebook, stuff like that. And yeah, it was like a really kind of a nice thing to see, like, oh, other people like this music too. Because I mean, before that, what I used it for was if I wanted to make like organizing my laundry a more tolerable task, I would like write what I would think of now as like a dungeon synth song, and I would put it up on my DAW, and I set up like a loop band, and I just play it on loop, and then I just turn my speakers up, and I like organize my laundry. And sometimes I'd leave it on and like fall asleep and wake up and like the same song was playing. And I would do this, and and then I would just delete it. It's like, that was good. I never want to hear it again. So that's how I would use that type of music, is I would make like a simple like dark ambient type loop, play it, do some chores, and then delete it. because I thought no one else would want that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I got into that stuff. And it was like I was already making it, found out like that people were making stuff that sounded like what I was doing and called it dungeon synth. Recognized the history of that term, like started learning about how music that sounded like it belonged to a Zelda game ended up in the intro tracks for like black metal albums, things like that. And started putting it all together, and then recognized that there's like a community for this stuff on the internet, and I'm already like I've already made this community, but I'm the only person in it. So
Yeah.
I'll just leave mine and go join that one instead.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so I know you mentioned, so by this point you were already kind of producing and recording stuff at home. When did that kind of start for you in terms of the engineering? Was that while you were recording your own bands, or like what spurred that?
Oh, as far as like learning how to produce music,
Yeah.
I've been recording music almost as long as I've been like playing it. I got into it when I first started getting into bands. I think our drummer had like one of the early MacBooks, early version of GarageBand, and we would just try to like, God, how do they make these albums sound so good? We'd like look stuff up on the internet, like, oh, you double track the guitar, so you'll like copy the guitar track and paste it without realizing it's like the same waveform, so it's just changing the amplitude basically, like not understanding the like the actual like reason people do that is not to make it louder, it's to make it sound different.
Yeah.
And just essentially experimenting with stuff and looking things up and trying things out, and making our own demos. And then one of our bandmates went to film school at Chapman University. He studied Foley art, so had access to the Foley studios when he was at school there, and we would go in there at night, like when all the classes were done, nobody was there, and we would record demos for our band on they had Pro Tools on the computers. Okay. And he was being taught Pro Tools, and I was studying composition at UCSD, so it was like only less than a 2-hour drive. And I bought Pro Tools because he was using it there, and I was mostly learning it. I wasn't taking a class in it at UCSD. I was using it to try and make ideas and stuff like that. And I was mostly learning it from him and from the Foley studios at Chapman. And we would just go in there and like record demos for our bands from like I don't know, like probably like 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. or something like that, like whenever no one else was using them.
Yeah.
And we were the only people in there, and it was like a really kind of fun memory, just being completely like sleep deprived and thinking something sounds good and coming back the next day and realizing it sounds like absolute dog shit. Like just you've done a bad job and you thought you did a good job, and it's important to get rest too.
Yeah.
But that's how I got into it. And we're in a few bands together, and we would record our own stuff mostly. I think that we started, I don't even know when I first like recorded at a different studio. I think we did like you know what? I think the second full-length album I did with that friend, we went to a studio to do drums. We were like, we don't have enough channels to record drums properly. And we went to a studio and didn't know what we were doing. And, having more channels doesn't help if you don't know what the channels should be used for.
Right.
And the engineer wasn't very helpful. So yeah, that's the beginning of that story.
Okay. And just kind of talking about your production stuff, I remember when I first, last year when I was starting to kind of think of, well, not even think, but when I started kind of trying to do my own dungeons and stuff, and just in general, I found that your YouTube videos were a great resource. And anytime, when I'm doing my stream with Northeast Dungeon Siege, I always kind of put a disclaimer out there. I say, what you're seeing here is me kind of fumbling and exploring. If you want the real, like you want real good stuff, go see Francis. Go see Francis's YouTube, because I just think
it's not even just, your tutorials are like super in depth and super helpful about all aspects. I mean, I was watching your Let's Make a Dungeon Synth project season 1, and that's with soft synths, and you're like, well, let's make a Dungeon Synth, season 2, and you're like, all right, now we're going to do hardware, and you're showing all the different options that people can do, as well as providing contact libraries too, and like, sampling. And
I've been getting into that more, and it seems like well, I mean, I think that most people that get into music now, because music production software has become so accessible. You don't need to like be a student at a university to like use your student loan to buy Pro Tools for like still something like $200-$300 when it's on the discount. Like,
yeah,
these days you can actually like get music production software for free.
Yeah,
like there's plenty of good free options. And the free options now are better than the expensive options were back then. So what a lot of people do is start there instead of starting with an instrument, and they're looking for loops and stuff like that. And I thought about making like here's an 8-bar loop, and I've never really made music that way, so I feel like it would be kind of disingenuous. Like, I don't really know what people are looking for with that. And I feel like most people that are approaching music in that way are trying to make stuff that's in more of like a sample flipping genre, like hip hop, where it sort of makes sense because you're not using the loop as it is. You're using the loop and chopping it up and being creative with it, adding a beat and stuff like that. And I think that a lot of like electronic dance music and hip hop uses loops in a way that doesn't feel like plagiarism, whereas other genres, when you're bringing loops in, sort of does. It feels like you're just taking that thing, and then you hear like 10 people on SoundCloud have a song that sounds exactly the same, whereas like 10 hip hop producers using that sample, those you might not even notice that it's that sample. Right. And that's like the beauty of producing in different genres. Like another artist, like French electronic music, like Daft Punk. The samples are like almost unrecognizable in those songs because they're so creative with them. And so like if I'm making 8-bar dungeon synth loop, I don't think that that's going to be very helpful for someone making dungeon synth.
Right.
Because it's like it's done, right? It's like the genre doesn't have enough moving parts in a song usually to like have that be something you can do much with. So I like the idea of making samples and for myself to use. And I don't even know where to begin with selling that stuff or doing it in a way that I think is wouldn't leave a bad taste in my mouth. I hate copy protection. I hate like all this like new internet stuff, like having like wrapper softwares for things, and like I'd rather just put a donate button under it and make it like look trashy. I'm not gonna like pay someone to make a UI and then charge $50 for it. Maybe in the future, if like some like company offers me that, I would consider like a collaboration or something like that. But for the ones that I do myself, like I'd rather just have it be like name your price. Because I'd rather have people making music than wondering how to make music.
I just want to jump in to say thank you for listening, and here are the ways that you can support us. Subscribe to The Color of Air on your favorite podcast app like Apple, Stitcher, Radio Public, or Spotify, and be sure to rate and review. Also follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/retcongreg. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/Ret Con Industries, where we have 3 monthly subscription tiers of $1, $5, and $10. Depending on which tier you choose, you will have your name listed in the credits for every future podcast and music release, as well as access to bonus audio and video content, Bandcamp discounts, and exclusive merchandise through the Ret Con Swag Club. Finally, please check out all the music up for sale at retconindustries.bandcamp.com. And now, back to the podcast.
And besides, the resources and everything, I just found it really inspiring to see someone who's, you know, giving back to the community as a whole, but also using it to make awesome music on your own too, you know. And I like that you I know, like, I was listening to the EP you made with the SK1 sample kits.
Mm-hmm.
And as a child I had an SK1, so I find that super awesome and fascinating.
So I like raffled off the SK1 after making that.
Yeah.
And then like a month later, a guy working on a video game asked if I could make some music for it, and liked that stuff, and we ended up using almost entirely those samples. We combined it with other stuff, but it made me like miss having the SK1. So I bought another one. There was like, I went on Facebook Marketplace and I found one for like cheaper than I bought the first one for, and so I just bought another SK1 and I have one again, and I might like do my like, I made a mistake video, like here's another SK1 sample library. Just like I realized that I wanted the option to like to use it on voices for like a sound design tool, like get that really like messed up, distorted, like crunchy SK1 resample sound with like hello, like hello. Like I feel like you could do really cool stuff with that.
Oh, well, I mean, when I was like 12, that's all we did with it. It was like make it sound like a dog, or
it's actually really challenging to make it like a musical sample. And there's a bit of a learning curve to that, and like making sure like the first note you record is in tune, and rebuilding them as contact libraries made it easier.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to sort of make it work on the sampler itself to get the sound of it.
Well, and I know when I started my second Dungeon Synth record and doing the streams about it, I was just like, you know what, let's try. Well, I tried to use your library, but then my contact wasn't up to date. So so I had to wait a week, update everything, and then come back and then be like, I was using your SK1 libraries, and oh my god, it fits so well. It just worked so well. And so I kept telling people, hey, this is Francis's stuff. Go check it out.
Those things turned out so much better than I thought they would. I actually I've been working slowly on fixing them. There's obviously a few problems, like you can't make, I think it's like 40 instruments or something like that. You can't do that by yourself without having a couple of typos. I found like a couple of spots where like two notes next to each other play the same note and stuff like that. So I've been fixing them on my own computer, and I'll have to re-upload them soon. I'm also like fixing the gain staging in them, because some of them are really quiet and some of them are really loud. And I think it would be the less work that they are to use, the better.
Well, so I love them. So
I love them too. I use them a lot. I use them in all kinds of places where I don't think you would necessarily catch that they're there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're fun all by themselves, but they're also like great as like a layer. They have this like really like pronounced mid range, and it feels like the thing you get by adding like an electric guitar or an accordion to a track. I feel like those are like the two classic instruments to add to a mix where you can make it seem like they're not there. Mm-hmm. Electric guitars, if you want to sound like rock, and accordion is like if the guitar is not enough. Like a lot of punk records have accordion in them, like hidden in the mix.
Oh wow!
The high budget ones. Green Day actually tours with an accordion player, or did for a while.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like an instrument that's like tried and tested. Like, here's the mid range. Let's make it sound even louder. And when it's combined with other instruments, you don't even catch that it's there. Like, people recognize accordion not because of the timbre of it, but because of the styles of music. Like, you have to play polka or a waltz for people to be like, that's an accordion. Because when you don't do that, it's like just a drone. It's an organ. People just it's easy to go like gong 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 gong.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned studying composition in school, and was your kind of thinking, were you looking to do film scores or video game scores or something like that, or are you just learning it just to just have that knowledge to make your own songs better?
I don't remember, to be honest.
Okay.
I know that I changed to a composition major because I didn't like my major that I had before that. So I was like in college, um, wanting to avoid the calculus classes that were required of the major I had selected, which is um, had more to do with computer science, but it was like a experimental major, one of those like, here's a new thing that we can study.
Yeah.
Give us your money.
Yeah.
um, so I decided that I didn't want to take all the. I was really hating the like high level math classes. And I was like, also, I think I was minoring in music. I was like, you know what? I really am enjoying the music classes, and I'm going to switch to that major. And nobody stopped me. So I switched to a composition major, and I don't know exactly what I was expecting because
Okay.
like undergrad composition majors, you don't really like. I think a lot of people do that thinking that they're going to like write for orchestra. It's like the schools don't have a budget to like hire an orchestra to play your piece. Like
Yeah.
you'll learn to write for orchestra if you're like in a film scoring major, and you'll learn to do it with samplers. And I wasn't in a film scoring major,
Yeah.
and I think that I kind of wanted to be, but didn't know what that was at the time.
Hmm.
And I definitely like did some music for student films for film majors and stuff like that. Like film majors love composition majors because they want music in their movie that's original soundtrack that they don't have to pay for. So I made friends with film majors and sort of got into that a little bit and fell out of that world, getting into bands and playing in bands, and came back to it more recently, like wanting to score for films, games, television, stuff like that. And I've been doing a little bit of that again, and it feels good. And I'm liking it more than the band thing, and feeling like I should just start spending a good amount of my day every day, like seeking out that kind of work, so I can do it more often. Because it's one of those things where it's a snowball.
Yeah.
Like you need to be in credits to be asked to be in credits.
Yeah. It's, well, you brought up a good point with, film majors and composition majors, because the whole point is, besides just the free aspect of it, but it's also just for that student, it's building a portfolio. It's like saying, here are movies I made as a film director, and then whatever the composition major is adding to it is making it feel more real, like a fully realized thing. And then conversely, for a composition major, you're learning, how to score to movies, but then also getting your name out there. And
Yeah, scoring to picture is so different from like writing music.
yeah.
It's like it's like a different skill.
Yeah. 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 It's, and I think it's something we, especially in pandemic, during the pandemic, it was like things to do. I was like, oh yeah, it'd be awesome, I should start doing that. But I've never given it too much of a shot yet. I've only done very little of it, but I can imagine that it's a whole different experience.
Yeah, I don't have enough experience with it either, to be honest. But yeah, um it's like learning to write music is like learning words, and then
Yeah.
scoring to pictures is like writing essays with those words. It's like you have to be fluent in that to be able
Hmm.
to do what you want here. Because if you want to get from this place to this place, and the director cuts out the scene in between,
Hmm.
you have to correct the music and be like, this part of the music needs to get here without the transition. So I need to make a transition that works. That's not like disjunct, but I need to retain the material here. So I need to retain this mood in transitional material to this place without the transition. It's just like it's a lot of gymnastics, like figuring out like how to make stuff feel natural.
Yeah. uh, and then again, jumping around, but and then going from your production and going into your band stuff. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about Old Man Wizard and how that kind of came about. And
um, let's see. I was Well, I mean, almost everything good comes from a deadline. And that was one of the first projects that came from the realization that you can make deadlines for yourself.
yeah.
I was about to go on tour. I was like messing around with some electric guitar stuff. I hadn't been in an electric guitar band in a while. I was playing acoustic music mostly, and I wanted to do like a rock band kind of a thing. Was working on demos, liking the way they sounded, but didn't have a band for them. Didn't have enough demos to really show people. It was like unfinished parts, like collections of riffs, some of which had like vocal parts over them. Some of them had melodies. And I was about to go on tour for like 2 months. And I was like, you know what? By the end of like 2 weeks, like before I go on tour, I'm going to have a demo up on like SoundCloud or something. And I'm going to share the demo and be like, hey, anyone want to have a band like this? I want to start a band. Like, this is the sound I'm looking for, sort of. So I having that deadline and knowing that I was going to be away from music production stuff for like 2 months, like put a fire under my butt and like got it to the point where it's like I was able to finish the demo. I think I had like 5 songs and I was able to finish 3 of them, and 3 is enough for a demo. So I put those 3 up on, I think, SoundCloud, shared it on, God, at that point, it would have been early Facebook, I think.
Yeah.
And anyone want to start a band? And people did. I ended up with, when I came back from tour, having one of the bandmates that I was in the band with was like, I've been wanting to play electric bass in a band, because he was playing an upright, and anyone that plays upright and electric, if they're called in for a gig, would always rather bring the electric, because it's about exactly 1/10 of the size. And then one of his bandmates, who I knew as a guitar player, said they'd play drums, and I was like, I've never heard you play drums. Can you play drums? Okay, let's try it. And it turned out they're a pretty good drummer. So that group of 3 people, me and those 2 people, is the current lineup, actually.
Okay.
We tried some other stuff out. Originally, there was a guy that wanted to play trombone, and I seriously considered it, and it didn't work out, more because of scheduling than anything else. Like, I had ideas, like on actually the first album, there's a couple of melodies that are like not part of the band, that I think there's a song that has like a cello part, a song with a flute part, a song with a harmonica part. And the idea was to have a 4th member that was like playing some other instrument. So there was a consideration for a keyboard player, a consideration for a trombone player. And a lot of the songs ended up with additional melody parts that weren't represented in the live show.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
And that's the result of ending up with a 3-piece when you were writing for a 4-piece.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about extending that band out to a 4-piece again, just because all those songs exist. The new album, I put like this crap on every song. It's like subtle in some of the songs, but pretty obvious in other ones. And I just think that a 4-piece band sounds better. 3-piece works for certain types of music, like Motorhead did it really well for a while. Where it's like, if it's just rock and roll, it's like, yeah. But for music that's got like melodic complexity, vocal harmonies, it's a lot easier to sing in tune when you have a keyboard instrument. Electric guitars, like distorted guitars, are really hard to like hear accurately when you're on stage, and it's all boomy and stuff like that. I sing in tune better when there's a keyboard.
Oh, okay.
It's just a clearer sound. So I think when there's having like a big block chord on the chorus that you can like tune to when you have a vocal harmony is like really helpful.
Okay.
So I think it would just make the band sound better.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I was trying to keep in my head, I'm like, there's all these different things I want to ask him about.
I always see like, whenever I see like TV interviewers that like aren't allowed to make mistakes, they always are taking notes the whole time.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, that's why they're doing it. I do that too. Like I forget to take notes, and I'll start like, I'll remember this next question for sure. No.
Well, I do have my notebook that I do have notes for interviews, but I think I've just been lazy the last few weeks and just being like, I'll wing it and see what happens.
Usually works.
Yeah.
Stuff works itself out.
I'm not a serious journalist. This is just a podcast for talking to musicians, like, and just being nerds about stuff. And well, I was going to say too, I want to make sure I mention that the Spine of Night, because I am super psyched about that. And so can you tell me a little little bit about that and how you ended up getting involved with it.
It's I think they're describing it as a ultra violent rotoscoped horror fantasy film.
Yeah.
The director Morgan King hand animated almost the whole thing by himself over the course of 7 years. And it's like sort of in the school of like Fire and Ice, Frank Frazetta, Ralph Bakshi style animation, like American high fantasy animated films. What I've seen of it is really cool. I haven't watched the whole movie yet, obviously. I don't think, well, I mean, not obviously. I could have gone. There was actually a screening in LA a few weeks ago, like an early screening that I couldn't make. It was happened to be on the same night that we scheduled session one of my new D&D campaign.
Okay. Priorities.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's like it looks really cool. The only scene that I've seen like at a relatively high level of completion is the part is scene the parts that I worked on.
Okay.
And they basically sent me the movie as like here's an idea of it. It will be finished when it's released, kind of a thing. It was like a lot of people with cardboard swords jumping off of beds like that. Like we're gonna draw over these. Like the way they're doing it is like if there's a giant, they'll just like take footage of like a person and they'll just blow it up really big and have like another person really small, and they would like build it out of like cell phone shot footage of people in like their bedroom.
Oh wow.
And like just sort of stitch it all together and then they would draw over it. It's like really cool. But the scenes that I worked on, they sent to me as they were like essentially being animated, and I haven't heard them with the sound design yet. So I went to the full sound mix, like whatever they do with the stems that I sent them. I'm excited to see how it turns out. But the whole movie looks really cool. I'm like super excited about it. And how did I get involved in it? I got an email from one of the two. I don't know if it's two directors, director and producer. Well, one of the two main people working on it emailed me asking if I was open for commissions. Basically, like he said, we're using some of your music in the temp score.
Oh. Okay.
And if anyone's listening, a temp score, I feel like it's worth explaining because it's not a common term outside of the industry. It's where you make a movie and you don't have music for it yet, but you have a vibe that you want. So you just put whatever music you want in it. And because it's not being distributed, it's not illegal. It's like for private use, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to like publish and distribute it, you either need to like essentially obtain rights to every single one of those songs, or you need to replace them with original soundtrack. So they were using my music in the temp score, and I didn't know them.
Oh wow.
So they found me on the internet. I think they found me on the like Moog synthesizer tag on Bandcamp or something like that.
Yeah.
Like
Wow.
they were like wanting like this type of stuff.
Yeah.
For a couple of parts, and yeah, it was like I mean that's a real compliment. Like someone that you don't know asking you to do like asking to pay you to do music for their movie. It's like yeah, it's like highest level compliment. And the funny thing is, it was a song that like I think it's like the track that they were using in the temp score was I think the track that might have the lowest amount of plays on my Bandcamp. Like it was my least popular song.
Those are the kind of moments you hope for, is that someone just kind of stumbles upon what you do and realize, oh, this is exactly what I need for that. And then it, and I mean, thinking about it, I mean, this could hopefully open up a whole new world for you in terms of, which it's amazing. Like one thing can just change all that. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I'm like, when I found out, I mean, we were all excited when we found out it was getting a theater release. That was like completely unexpected from everyone's part. Like they got it into some film festivals. They like essentially tried to get it into film festivals, and then they got into the South by Southwest Film Festival, which was a surprise. That was already like, the holy shit, this is bigger than we ever imagined it would be.
Yeah.
And then from there, it got picked up by a distributor, and I got an email that's like, this is going to be in theaters, and I like literally cried. I was like, holy shit, this is like the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. Because I never I've seen a short film that I worked on in a theater before, but it was like, you know, like a student film festival at UCLA where, like, you know, that was part of the program, is that you this is, you know, in order to know how to make a movie, you need to know what the stuff you're doing looks like in a theater, so you know how to like step it up.
Yeah.
And I did some music for a friend that was in the UCLA film program, and yeah, so I've heard my music in a theater and been like, holy shit, this sucks. And but like actually, like, you know, not like a student film festival, like you can buy a ticket to go see a movie and like you're in the credits for it, like
Yeah.
and it's not like, you know, you were, you know, bringing them sandwiches. It's like you actually like are in the credits as like a person that's like considered important to the movie. It's
Yeah.
like, holy shit, that's cool. So,
And are they planning on releasing the soundtrack at
there's
some
like
point?
a conversation about it. Basically, like the soundtrack, there's like, I think 5 composers on it.
Mhm.
They got like different scenes, or like, as far as I can tell, it's like different like eras of the timeline
Okay.
have like different soundtracks. There's like they got a metal band to do a song in it, I think. They got me for a section that's kind of like an origin story vignette section. I know that Guild of Lore
Yeah.
is on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know what he made for it. Then there's like a main composer that like scored the other parts.
Okay.
Like, so there's like a main composer that that did like the film score, and they had like essentially scenes that have like pieces of music or like songs.
Oh wow.
There's one other,
Okay.
I think it wasn't Kobold, maybe it is, I can't remember who the last, there's like one other dungeon synth artist that they got for it, and
Oh
I should
wow.
know this, I can't remember who it was.
It's
um
all right. That's cool.
yeah,
That's awesome.
but yeah, essentially what'll happen is that like if they don't do a soundtrack album, we've got permission to like release them. I'm
Okay.
gonna see, yeah, so I'll release the music that I did for it, if there's no soundtrack album.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll be able to, you know, work with the distributor to get like a screenshot from the movie as the album cover for that, because I'd
Mhm.
rather not have like a, you know, here's a like a blue square that says like from the Spine of Night original
Yeah.
soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we do a soundtrack album, because that would be really cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the other music, like the stuff that I've seen from like other pieces of it, it seems like the other people that worked on it did a good job too.
Cool.
And,
Awesome.
yeah.
So I mean, I just want to say thank you again for taking time to do this. You know, I find everything you do really awesome and inspiring. You know, you're definitely one of the artists. When I was kind of getting started with the dungeons and stuff, like I was, you know, I think there's a lot of different artists who I'm interviewing one by one on this podcast, and so I can at least tell them thank you. But also and also one thing I thought was really cool is, like, I remember I sent you my Dungeon Synth record, and you put it, you know, on one of your streams for your listen to Bandcamp Friday, and you know, and you listened to it and had nice things to say about it. So I was like, oh sweet, if I can get an actual producer to like it, that's
I've been having to I haven't been able to do those for like the last 2 Bandcamp Fridays, and it's like those are so fun. It's fun seeing like all the people that show up in the chat and like have suggestions. Like a lot of people will be like, hey, listen to my thing, and it's like it makes the stream like more interactive and fun. I really love doing those. So
yeah,
I'm glad you appreciate that.
Yeah,
Because
no,
I have fun doing those.
well, yeah, it's always, I mean, it's always fun to have someone like putting your stuff out there in some way, either like a review or just kind of mentioning it, because, you know, and I'm sure you're aware of this, like the whole like self-promotion thing can get really grinding after,
Yeah,
you know.
tune it out.
Yeah. But yeah, and so real quick, can you, I've been bad about having people, I've been posting their links in the description, but can you just give the basic, you know, where can we find you information?
Yeah, YouTube is Francis Roberts. Instagram's Francis Roberts. I feel like that's a dying platform.
Yeah.
Twitter is like look in the description. I feel like that's a good place to interact with me.
Okay.
But it's like it looks good, but it doesn't say well. It's like at F_C_R_. Um, it's like a snazzy handle, but it's not easy to say out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that.
Those are probably the best places. I guess Bandcamp as well. Francis Roberts, bandcamp.com.
Okay.
And then some of the Dungeon Synth stuff that I do in relationship with the tutorials and things is released under Astral Cauldron.
Okay.
And that's on Bandcamp as well. Old Man Wizard and King Gorm are both on Bandcamp. That's probably the best place for those as well. I post like a lot of that content from my YouTube channel as well, though.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yeah.
And we didn't really touch too much on it, but I really like the King Gorm album a lot too. I love
Cool.
the vibe of that. That's really cool.
I think that one turned out really great. I like the process behind that one was cool. It's like that was like the first like pretty much live album, like just set everything up like very old school way. Big like analog console tape machine, like went into
Yeah.
a studio and got an engineer that's used to doing stuff that's like never touches a computer. We did touch a computer because we didn't have the budget to keep it
Yeah.
on analog the whole time, but I that was a really fun album to make.
That's awesome. And yeah, so yeah, thank you again for taking this time.